I love Wuthering Waves. That is a shock to absolutely nobody. Yet, I was browsing YouTube earlier today and a video popped up in my feed titled Why I Like Zenless Zone Zero More Than Wuthering Waves. And I thought, you know what, this would be a great video to react to on stream. And then I thought about it for another moment and I was like, while I could react to this on stream, what I could instead do is a video on why I prefer Wuthering Waves more than Zenless Zone Zero. Now, I will note, on my phone, when I saw this, I did make certain to make a personal note on my phone stating that I will preface this with a statement that I do not think one game is objectively better than the other, because I know that is going to be the first thing that people think. They're going to think, Stix is attacking Zenless Zone Zero, oh my god. When the reality is, no, I actually also really enjoyed Zenless Zone Zero. I did a dedicated video on how Zenless actually exceeded my initial expectations for the game. And then I went on to make sure that I would remember to note that everything stated here is a subjective opinion. An opinion, my opinion. You are fully capable of having your own opinion. That doesn't make your opinion wrong. That doesn't invalidate my opinion either. It just means that we have different opinions. And I know a difference of opinion in today's world is very difficult to maintain, even to necessarily comprehend. But I feel like people should be capable of having a civil discussion to state their opinions, whether they align with yours, whether they're positive or negative, and not just have it devolve into hate, into negative banter between potentially hundreds or thousands of people. Now, this isn't a deep or complex video. If you're interested in what I genuinely think about Wuthering Waves, I do have a review currently up, a brutal, honest review going over everything I like and I dislike about Wuthering Waves. I strongly urge you to go ahead and check that out. It's currently nearing 30,000 views and is actually very positively received. But I think I'll start this off with I believe the major thing that drove me away from Zenless and even further towards Wuthering Waves, and that is its world. I'm not the biggest fan of open world games. I enjoyed Genshin, I enjoyed Tower of Fantasy. When I got into Wuthering Waves, I was like, oh joy, another open world. And I've explored maybe 60% of it, maybe 65% of it. The world is overwhelmingly large. There are plenty of people that 100%ed it. You know, good for you. I don't have it in me. I get distracted very easily. I see something and I'm like, I'm gonna go see what that is. I don't have the time or the patience to invest too much into world exploration. If I go back to somewhere 2 weeks from now and find chests that weren't originally there, that I didn't see the first time, I now have the opportunity to explore that, to find this content that I never knew existed. And that, to me, is a great way to play, because it means that there is always more content for me to see, more things for me to do. I don't rush through it. But Zenless, while a very pretty hub, doesn't really promote much in terms of exploration. Once you've run around once or twice, you kind of know where everything is. Everything is stagnant and nothing changes, which is fine for the kind of game it is. It works. And again, at a base level, I also want to take a moment here to note that I'm not comparing which game is better. The two games are objectively different kinds of games. It's like comparing an MMO, like World of Warcraft, to, I don't know, God of War Ragnarok, right? You can't. The games share similarities, sure, Zenless to WoWA, but they're very different games and they're going to appeal to very different target demographics. With that being said, people still compare them. And that is why I'm doing this video, because while we cannot compare them necessarily as games, we can still prefer one over the other. And that is because certain aspects of a game appeal to us and certain don't. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of segregated worlds. I'm not the biggest fan of instanced games, because I feel like while they can be beautiful, while there can be a lot of content condensed into them, I feel like at the very same time, they feel empty, they feel hollow, they feel void of life. And open world games like WoW, like Genshin, like Tower of Fantasy, they have so much going on in the world, especially with regards to WoW, that sense of life and activity just makes the world feel lived in. And Zenless 2 really does to an extent as well. They do a great job of making the NPCs seem like they actively inhabit the world that they do. And I appreciate that Hoyo really took the time to make the various different areas feel lived in. They did a great job with that, and it really does. But at the same time, you are still limited to a few different areas. It doesn't matter if you can go to 4 areas or 14. You're still very limited to the small, little, segregated zones. That, to me, is limiting, it is inhibiting, and I do not like. Now, before I talk any more about WoW, let me take a moment to thank my incredible patrons over on Patreon and my YouTube channel members who allow for me to continue to do dedicated videos like this every single day. You guys are phenomenal, and I can't thank you all enough for the support. Now, let's keep going. I think the action in both games is incredible. I think for gacha games, the two of them are about as good as you can feasibly get right now. I cannot say which game has better combat because objectively, they both have very different styles of combat, and they both appeal to very different kinds of people. I had a lot of fun in Zenless. I know that people complained you can just hold, your main attack button and you'll just kind of burn through all the enemies. You don't require any skill whatsoever. But Zenless's combat is so much deeper and so much more complex than that. Same with Wuthering Waves. I think both games do a phenomenal job with combat. I do prefer Wuthering Waves because it feels faster and it looks flashier. I like the true dodges or the perfect dodges. I like the ability to parry, to counterattack. I like the ability to like jump up in the air and utilize aerial combos, like the intros and the outro skills, like the team synergy and compositions, like the echo system. The combat, just to me, in Wuthering Waves is more fun, more enjoyable. That doesn't make it better, it just makes it more enjoyable. That, coupled with the world, makes Wuthering Waves more fun to explore, to engage. With regards to the story, sure, Zenless has Wuthering Waves, I think, beat. I think 1.1 story was better than the story I have experienced in Zenless so far. I think the character stories thus far are better than Zenless, but I think the base game for Zenless is better than the base game for WoW. That might upset a few people, but I think Wuthering Waves' story got progressively better, whereas Zenless started off better and then kind of just stayed decent throughout. I like that there's a lot to do in Wuthering Waves, as long as you don't power through the game too quickly, which I know some people definitely did. I like the fact that there's actual co-op in Wuthering Waves, that I can party up with my wife, Mrs. Stix, maybe with one of you as well. Go around, kill monsters out in the world, kill bosses out in the world, farm resources, farm materials, farm echoes if you want to. I think it'd be so much cooler, by the way, if we could farm hologram bosses as a collective, or maybe do the Tower of Adversity in co-op. That'd be really cool, and just have them like scale in terms of difficulty. That would be fantastic. But I really enjoy the fact that you can kind of cooperatively exist within that world and do everything together, or at least do a lot more together than other games that are like it allow for you to do. I like that Kudo, the studio behind Wuthering Waves, is a studio that actually seems to care to an extent about its players. We have gotten so many rewards. We have been compensated for every single issue that they've had, major and minor, and they seem to be relatively dedicated to bringing us the best version of the game that they can. Even in spite of all the people that hate on it, some of that hate is definitely warranted, and for good reason. The majority of it isn't. I feel like the majority of hate that gacha games get in general, like even Zenless got an equivalent amount of hate they really don't deserve. Overall though, I think the thing that I really like about Wuthering Waves, the thing that really enthralls me the most, is the fact that at any point I can just log in by myself or with someone else and just run around the world and probably see things that I have never seen before. I can do whatever I want to do. I can do dailies. I can farm resources. I can farm echoes. I can attempt another hologram boss fight. I can do the character stories. I can just explore. I can take screenshots. I can search for new side quests that pop up and spawn randomly around the world. I can continue unlocking parts of the world by doing quests. I feel like other games gate too much of their game behind stamina, and realistically, Wuthering Waves doesn't. They do to an extent, but not to the same degree that other games do. And I like, essentially, if I had to define it, the freedom I have to do whatever I want, whenever I want. The world allows for you to do anything, to go anywhere. And that is what I enjoy so much about it. Genshin does too, sure. But Wuthering Waves, to me, subjectively, just looks better, which also is another thing. I love the character models in Zenless, I really do. I think they do an incredible job with the character models and the graphics and the expressions. I think Wuthering Waves does equally as good with their expressions in cutscenes, but the character models in Wuthering Waves are the best the genre has to offer. Look at Jinza, look at Yinlin, and more than that, look at Chongli. That is a freaking character. Now, that is just my opinion. It probably differs to yours. You might have other things that you enjoy. You might like the soundtrack, the music, which is great. It's gotten a lot better. You might like the monster variants. You might like the game's difficulty. There are any number of things you might like about Wuthering Waves that I don't. That you might like about Wuthering Waves more than Zenless. That you might like about Zenless more than Wuthering Waves, and that is fine. There's nothing wrong with that opinion. But me, personally, I am really enjoying WoWa. I play it every single day, and at least until Azure Parmelia comes out, I don't plan on stopping that. Now, if none of this is of any interest to you, though, absolutely no problem. I got you covered with 2 different videos. Let's read right now. That might be more up your alley.